Namaste and welcome, dear friends. Hello. We are live right here, right now. My name is Anya Light. I am extremely delighted to be here with you today from Anya's ashram. We have recently renamed this space to Anya's ashram, and it is very much my joy to be speaking with all of you lovely souls today. I'm going to give everyone a moment or two to log on. If you are here joining us, please let us know who's here in the live chat, which you will see either under the video box or next to the video box. And all you need to do is sign into your Google account, and you should be able to type in a comment or a greeting. Let me know if the sound is good, if you can hear me okay, and let me know how you're doing today. Hello, Luann. Welcome. Welcome. It's good to connect with your energy today, very much so. Thank you for being here. So throughout this broadcast, feel free to type any questions or comments as they come up. You don't need to wait for the Q&A at the end, although you're more than welcome to wait for the Q&A later. But if questions pop up, like things that I say don't make sense in the moment, please feel free to just go ahead and throw your questions as they arise. I see Deanna here. Oh, hello, my dancing friend. How are you, dear? And then I see Trisha. Hello, beautiful soul. Hello. Yes. And okay, good. Sounds like the audio is good, so that's wonderful. Thanks, Luann. I'm really glad to be here with you. Let's just all start, before we dive into the topic together, to just take a breath together. Does that sound good? So maybe in this moment you close your eyes, and or maybe you place a hand over your heart space and just take a few breaths, slow, deep inhalations through the nose, and then perhaps a slow, deep exhalation out the mouth with the mouth open. So inhaling. On every exhale, let something go. How about one more? Welcome to Soul Satsang on this beautiful Saturday. I don't know about you, but the weather here in Grand Rapids, Ohio is stellar. It's sunny and warm and blue skies. Welcome. So just as we would if we were meeting in person together, this broadcast, this time together, has moments of silence, moments of pause. And if you're a multitasker, I would encourage you to click out of all those other boxes and really be here now with us and see what it feels like to just drop everything else. Maybe switch off your phone, or if you're obviously watching this on your phone, keep it on, but maybe your other devices, switch them off, put them away. Find yourself really, truly here in this moment. Commit to this time together. We have about an hour together. And so really feel yourself drop in. And in truth, the words that I share are less important than simply the willingness to be here now. So even if my voice comes in and out of your awareness, what I would invite for you in this space is to connect with your breath, connect with this moment, connect with being here without anything else on the agenda. Just take some time for you here to really be here. The theme for today, healing our addictions with love, is one of the foremost important topics that I share with souls. Why? Because I feel deeply that this is a common subject for all of us human beings at different levels of intensity. Some of us struggle with this more or less, but truly I feel through my own personal experience in healing my addictions, and then in counseling many, many souls in their addiction issues, really, really observing, letting spirit guide me through the years on this topic. This is the first gathering that I've ever offered on this topic. I've written a lot of blog posts and poems and letters on the subject, but never spoken about it before till now. So this is a really beautiful opportunity to allow really whatever comes forth out of my mouth. I never really know. I just let spirit speak through me. But I do know it's going to be an amalgamation from a lot from my own personal journey over the years. So chances are, if you've tuned in today, that means that you perhaps are struggling with an addiction right now, or perhaps it is because you're a helper or a healer also, and you would like some more grounding and tools and just hearing different perspectives on the topic so that you can guide other souls as well. I recently connected with a beautiful group here in Northwest Ohio helping people through addiction. So I think some of you may be on this call. So I really, really, again, I'm grateful to be here today and talking about this, which is so near and dear to my heart. So what is an addiction? What is an addiction? And that seems like a good place to start, right? There's many things that we could say about addiction, but I think perhaps if we're going to give it a definition, we could say this. We could say that an addiction is something or someone or an activity that we reach for when we want to feel better and we don't want to put in any effort. So we're feeling bad, we're feeling stressed, anxious, sad, just some negative emotions are happening, some tension in the body, something feels negative. And we want to change that as fast as possible, like right now, right? And we don't want to put in effort. We just want that instantaneous switch. Now, if you look at this from the perspective of love, what we can start to tune into, my friends, my dear friends, is that there's really absolutely at core nothing wrong or bad with this desire, right? So, we're feeling sad, for example. Maybe someone we love has just passed away, or we've lost something that was dear to us, and we're feeling sad, we're feeling grief. And it's sort of the standard cliche, right? Like when you lose someone, or you're going through a divorce, you end up at the corner bar drowning your sorrows in a beer. Why do we do that? I mean, the core of that, from the perspective of seeing the universe within the framework of love, we can only see that as an innocent action, as a sincere attempt to feel better. And what is wrong with that? Nothing. Nothing is wrong with the urge and the desire to feel good, to feel joyful, peaceful, and happy. Thank you, Deanna, for sharing. Yes. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong at the core with the impulse to feel better, to feel good. So let's just make that clear from the start. Okay? Nothing wrong with that at all. The problem, if we could call it a problem, we have to be, I think, very careful with language here, because part of the issue with addiction is that we kind of sometimes throw outmoded words around, which end up making us feel worse. So I want to be very careful with the words that I say. So, and hello to Daniel. Hi, I see you. So the situation is that we want to feel better, which is fine. However, we reach for that thing that takes minimal effort. And typically, the things that take minimal effort are those instant gratification fixes, such as food, drugs, alcohol, shopping, credit cards, and Amazon. I don't have to list them all for you. We're all very aware of all the addictive things in our world, even just text messaging or being on Facebook. These things can be super addictive. So we want to reach for that thing to feel instantly better, right? But we don't want to put effort in. And so maybe through this transmission, we can start to just reflect for ourselves, what are the tools and techniques that we're already immersed in, we're already trained or familiar with, that we know help, but perhaps there's some resistance to doing them in those moments of despair or stress. So yeah, right off the bat here, I invite you to think, what are a few things that you already know that work like a charm to make you feel better, but they do take some effort? So for me, yoga is a big one. Asana practice, the movement practice. I know that if I roll up my yoga mat and I start moving my body and putting it into stretches like a pretzel, that within about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, my heart chakra will open, my anger or frustration or whatever I'm feeling will lift, and I will feel clear and revitalized. Does it take effort to get on the mat? Yeah, especially when I'm feeling not so great. It takes hard work, right? And so it would be much easier to, let's just share here. So it would be much easier to go down just a few houses down the street here to this lovely little ice cream shop, God bless them, where they sell delicious treats full of sugar that I could eat and probably in 5 seconds feel instantly elated, right? Is that going to be beneficial for my body in the long run? No. Does yoga have any side effects? No. Whereas the sugary treats do. The sugary treats are not so conducive to a generally vitalized state of being. Luann was saying here in the chat that music makes her feel better. Yeah, definitely. Music is one of those great go-tos. And actually, that one doesn't take a lot of effort, and there's no negative side effects of that one. So that's a really nice example, Luann, of something that we can utilize. And I mean, how much effort does it take to just like go to your source of music, whether it's on your phone or your computer, and just like hit the key, and then all of a sudden this uplifting music is playing. So that's a good example of something actually that doesn't take like work or effort, and you know it's gonna make you feel better. Perhaps though, in that case, and I don't know about you, Luann, but maybe if you have the choice, and I'm not saying you specifically, but let's say that maybe you have an addiction to, let's say, alcohol, for example. And I'm speaking to everyone generally here. So let's say there's an addiction to alcohol, and then there's a knowing that music is healing and uplifting and makes you feel better. We could be tempted to go for the alcohol more because it could seem more powerful in that moment, right? So we take a few sips of that beer or that wine. It might seem more stimulating than the music. The music, maybe, for example, it would take a little bit longer to feel that same amount of pleasure and joy because it's not such a intense thing for us. So just to be aware of the different things that we know we struggle with, and if sometimes we reach for those because they seem to us to be more potent or powerful or faster acting. So what are the things that you would like to do more of that don't have any negative side effects? Maybe you could just jot them down or put them in the chat here for us to read. So an addiction is something that we reach for when we want to feel better. And it's interesting to ask this question or to observe. Have you ever noticed in your life or in the lives of someone that you know that when you start to conquer an addiction, that often what happens is another addiction will spring up in its place? So the chronic drinker becomes a chronic smoker, and then you quit the smoking, but then the chronic smoker becomes the chronic chocoholic, right? And then the chocoholic becomes the chronic bread eater or whatever. It gets maybe less subtle, the severity of the addiction, but it seems like something is always being substituted for it. Have you ever noticed that? Or like the heroin addict becomes an alcoholic, or the person who loves to eat hot fudge sundaes at midnight suddenly gets addicted to like being on Facebook all night, right? So it's like one substituting for another. Deanna says chronic snacker. Yes, that's something so many of us, probably like most of us here together, deal with. It's so prevalent in our world. So, okay, so we're trying to feel better, right? We're trying to feel better. But then the question comes up, what is the core of that feeling crappy in the first place? So we're trying to feel better, but why do we feel bad in the first place, right? So what I've discovered, and this perhaps is controversial, well, I know it's controversial, is if you're dealing with an addiction that is life-threatening, then I would always say stop immediately as soon as you can. Get help, go to a rehab clinic, reach out to your pastor, friends, family. Stop as soon as you can and take it really seriously. Like if your addiction is threatening your ability to hold down a job, take care of your kids, if it's literally threatening your life because your life force energy is being stolen and you have illness, like severe illness because of your addiction, then of course, please do what you can, like right now, just to stop, right? However, if your addiction is not life-threatening, if it's less severe, if it's something, I mean, and I don't want to get into like giving examples, but you know what I'm saying. Like if your addiction is something that generally speaking, your life runs okay with it in your life, then what I would actually encourage you to do is not necessarily say, I will never do this thing again. Okay. Do you ever notice how like when you're trying to stop an addiction, you tend to say never? Like, I will never do that again. Never, never, never. And you make a vow to God and you write it in your journal a million times and you tell everyone, I'm never doing that again. I'm done with it. I'm over it. It's over. It's done. It's, and we say never. What I've noticed when that happens is that kind of pushing away creates a boomerang effect, an energetic boomerang effect that then creates tension, self-judgment in our bodies, hearts, and souls. And unfortunately, then what often happens is even if you never do pick up that thing or engage in that activity that you've declared to the universe that you'll quit forever, it's likely that you'll find another addiction to feed that emptiness that you feel, to feed that hole inside of yourself that you're trying to fill. So your addiction will often move from one thing to another. It just shifts forms to a different thing, but it's the same wound that you're trying to heal. So first thing, unless it's very life-threatening or extremely debilitating, I would not actually say never to that thing. I would simply say to myself, you know what? I am really feeling very strongly that I would like to release this thing from my life. I really feel the calling, the deep inner knowing that I'm ready to step away from this. So, yeah, Deanna's, one is traded for the other. Exactly. Yeah. So creating a loving way to just remind yourself. So when I feel an addiction coming up, what I do is I'll take a Post-it note and I will say, I am lovingly releasing, and then fill in the blank, from my life because da 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 da. So it's really good to get clear too, mentally clear why you're releasing that thing. Not just because it's bad. You should be like, well, I'm just releasing because it's bad. That's not specific. That's not going to really help you to really make that shift. So because it's, you could say, I am going to lovingly release text messaging from my life. I mean, the people that literally walk down the street and they're texting all day, and then they realize actually I have a problem. So just as an example, I'm lovingly releasing text messaging from my life because I realize it's hindering me from being in the present moment with the people around me, or it's hindering me from connecting with my family. So you give a good reason because da 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 da. And you say something like stepping away or releasing or dissolving or moving away from. These loving phrases and words can do wonders for you, because if you say something like never again, or you say, I'm quitting, these words have a boomerang effect where then it creates a tension. In Buddhism, there is the concept that the Buddha taught that equanimity is really the desired state of being. So equanimity is not a pushing away, and it's not a grasping after or a chasing after. It's not a and it's not a it's in between. It's the middle. So even with our addictions, if you push something away too hard, that's really not beneficial in the long run to healing the core wounds inside of yourself, which the addiction is simply trying to heal. Your addiction is not bad or wrong. It is a misguided attempt by you, by us all, we all go through it, to heal something. The problem is it's just not going to work because when we're in an addictive state, we're pulling something towards us. Give me that. I need that. Oh, I need it. I won't be happy. I won't feel good until I have this thing. It's the pulling, the grasping. But again, conversely, if you push something away, that's actually because of fear. Pushing something away very strongly is the opposite and equal reaction to pulling something in a grasping way towards the self. So again, unless your addiction is like extremely life-threatening, I would encourage you to not make any intense statements of never again, because what happens if you fail to live up to that? The tendency then is to judge yourself more, which then creates the cycle of shame, which then leads to low self-confidence, self-judgment, guilt. And then guess what? You find yourself engaging in that addiction the very next day to try to heal those feelings of judgment against yourself. So it's a vicious cycle. So I hope that makes sense. So when we heal our addictions with love, and I really would encourage you to think of an addiction as an attempt to give yourself love. I know that might sound kind of weird, but if you think of an addiction as it's a way that you're trying to give yourself the love that you feel in that moment that you're lacking, then you can transform it and really give yourself the kind of love that has no negative side effects, that has no hangovers the next day, that has no ill effects on the body or mind. You can feed yourself activities, practices, words of love that are 100% wholly beneficial. That's where we're moving towards. And we can't judge ourselves against anyone else. If something feels like an addiction to you, then it is. Even if everyone else in the world says, why are you worried about that? If you know that you have a compulsion towards something, that you use something to fill the empty space in your heart that you feel sometimes, then that is a legitimate addiction. And I would say it is helpful sometimes to call it an addiction. I have an addiction. To just be honest about that. And we don't have to say it with words of recrimination or anger at the self. We can just say it neutrally. I have an addiction. We don't have to get mad at ourselves, but we can be honest and admit, I have an addiction. Okay, so does everyone else in the world. Minus the very small group of enlightened beings who have no addictions. And even then, I might say that they maybe in some way have some addiction that we couldn't even understand because it's so subtle. You know, some bodhisattvas' addiction is to reincarnate, to keep helping people. Is that an addiction? If they feel it is, then it is. I'd like to look at Helena's comment here. I love the non-cold turkey method you're sharing. So often has that left me with guilt and feelings of failure. Compassionately releasing feels better. Yeah. Ooh, that's a nice phrase, Helena. Compassionately releasing. Compassionately releasing. I love myself so much that I'm willing to take it slow, give myself space to feel the feelings that I've been hiding from through that addiction, through that addictive behavior. I allow myself to feel that. You know, and so much of this healing addictions with love work is really our willingness to be with our human emotions, to acknowledge them, feel them, let them be, without pushing them under the carpet. So often we feel that we should be a certain way. I should be happy today. I should be getting along with this person today. I should be accomplishing this today. I should be shiny and sparkly today. Should be, right? But what if we don't feel like that all the time? What if we gave ourselves permission just to be whatever the heck comes up that moment in that day? I feel like a lot of people really turn to addictions because they're not giving themselves permission to be who they are. If in our society it was more common to have, for example, ecstatic dance gatherings where people felt free and comfortable to express their many, many feelings, to move their bodies and let out the anger and feel the joy and weep if they need to weep in the presence of other humans, loving, compassionate friends on the path, then I truly don't think that our world would have a bar in every corner. Why would we have bars? It wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist. But people go to bars so they can feel free, so they can release the judgmental voice in their heads and just kind of chill and let their hair down, which is a beautiful impetus, a beautiful intention, right? However, putting toxins in our bodies is counter to truly finding freedom in this life. So I really feel for us all in this moment as we dive into this topic, because we are living in a very challenging world. And we do want to find freedom. We want to find peace and relief. And it is hard to find those things sometimes. And yet at the same time, I am confident in your ability to, as Helena said, compassionately release those things that are blocking us from our truest expression in this lifetime. I know we can. So something that, in addition to saying, you can say, I have an addiction, and you can do that in a way that doesn't hold judgment. Another word or phrase that you can use in this journey is you can say something like, this activity or this behavior is unskillful. It is merely unskillful. And I choose instead this other activity, which is skillful. So that saying it that way doesn't hold these judgments against yourself. So, smoking a cigarette is unskillful. I choose to lovingly release cigarettes as a misguided attempt to love myself. And instead I usher into my life this new skillful way of kayaking on the river every day, just as an example. Getting fresh air, sunshine, communing with nature. I'm going to deliberately, with intention, bring this more into my life as a healthy replacement. Because earlier, how we talked about substituting one addiction for another? We can also intentionally substitute an addiction for a beautiful, nourishing behavior that has zero negative side effects. It helps to bring things into our lives rather than always taking things away. And I'll share with you on this. So, as someone who recollects I recollect many of my past lives, many of my past incarnations. And the ones that resonate the most with me, that I have the clearest memories of, is when I was an ascetic, or you could call me like a sadhu, or a wandering sadhu, basically like a wandering yogi. And I did all these like ascetic practices. I would stand on one leg for years. I would emaciate my body. I would starve myself till my ribs were showing and my teeth were falling out. And, I weighed like 50 pounds. Beautiful practices coming from a beautiful place in the sense of trying to connect with God, but misguided in the sense of really kind of abusing my body. In this lifetime, some of those karmic remnants follow me, and I feel myself sometimes getting into these very restrictive dietary patterns where I start just eliminating like whole big masses of different types of food from my diet, one after the other, because I start feeling like I need to keep purifying myself. That is a karmic remnant of those other lifetimes. And I have to say, they're not serving me in this lifetime, because in this lifetime, it's about integration and it's about mindful eating. So in this lifetime, I have learned how to be a really stellar cook. Like I've learned gluten-free, sugar-free baking, organic baking. I love baking. Cooking meals with really, really excellent organic local ingredients. As much vegan as possible. If I do once in a rare blue moon eat meat, which is very, very rare, it comes from a source that I trust, and I do a ritual and a ceremony with the meat to infuse it with love. And so my practice in this lifetime is really about nourishing my body through food, and not restricting myself in a harsh, overly disciplined kind of way. And so I would actually invite you to reflect for yourself. Is there things that you're constantly trying to take away from yourself? The point I was trying to make is that, like, it was just recent. A few months ago, I started on this kick where I was starting to just take everything out of my diet. I was like, okay, gluten is gone, and next it's going to be garlic and onions, because Ayurveda says that garlic and onions are bad, and then next after that it's going to be this. And I was like making a list of all the foods that I was going to eliminate in the next year, and which is fine for some people, but just for me, and knowing myself, where that was coming from was actually a really negative place. It was coming from a place of self-judgment and harshness. I'm not saying that maybe in the future, the next few years, I might give up those things. I might release those things. But if I did, it would be coming from a different place. What I want to focus on, instead of constantly taking away things and restricting myself, is what do I want to add into my life? What beautiful, beneficial, nourishing, healing foods, activities, practices, things, places, people do I want to add in? Do I want to infuse into my life? Do I want to bring in that fresh energy, rather than focusing so much on what am I going to take away? Because that often feels like a deprivation model, a scarcity model of life. And that just doesn't really resonate with me in this lifetime. It may have served me in the past, but not now. So for you, what is it that you want to bring in, right? So it's not all about it's like, I feel sometimes as healers and spiritual seekers, we get into these patterns where we're just constantly trying to give up things and release things and clear things and heal things. And it's great, to some extent, but we get almost overly zealous about it. And then we get tense and judgmental of ourselves when we don't live up to these high ideals that we have set for ourselves. And then also we sometimes start judging other people Because we're like, well, I'm doing all this hard work. It's so hard constantly to live up to these high standards. And then we start peering around at everyone else and judging them. Have you noticed that you do that? For example, I know I'm in a not so good place when I'm at the grocery store and I start looking at the people behind me in line, and I start looking in their cart and feeling superior to them and judging them by what's in their cart, So that's when I take things to a negative place. And right now, in this current day, the end of July here, 2021, my aim is really, how can I release judgment around food? And some of you know this, I've been around someone recently who's really pushed my boundaries with this, a very spiritual soul. And he meditates all day. His life is God. And also, he eats sugar all day. He doesn't really, this being is so lovely. And it's been interesting spending time with him, because I've noticed these judgments come up, like, you can't be spiritual and do that or that or that. Well, who says, right? It's all about just what we feel in our own heart. So again, if you feel you have an addiction to something, it's not up to anyone else to confirm that or agree with you or disagree. It doesn't matter what other people think. In the same way, if you feel like, there's something in you that's going overboard, it's only for you to say and to know that and to realize that. While others may be able to do the same practices, but not do it in a judgmental way. So it all, again, comes back to the arbiter of our own heart. You decide. This feels like a good pause here. One more thing, and then I'll get to the Q&A. So whenever we're trying to fill ourselves with an addiction, just to remember that what we're really truly seeking is love, right? That feeling of love. If we're in a state of love, we do not desire to do the things that harm us. We don't. So filling ourselves with the food of love. And a really simple way to do that is to place your hand on your heart and say, I love you to yourself. I love you, Anya. I love you, Anya. Try it. Saying your name. I love you. I love you no matter what. I love you no matter what. I love you unconditionally. I love you always. You're beautiful. Speaking to ourselves those words of love whenever we need it is going to heal within us those wounds, those empty places, those craving places. And slowly over time, those addictive tendencies will fade on their own. Coming back to love again and again. Talking to ourselves, talking to our inner child with love. I love you. I love you. It's okay. We got this. Things might seem crazy right now, but I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And we can even give ourselves permission. You know what? No matter what you do, no matter if you even do that thing that you don't want to do, I still love you. How powerful is that? giving ourselves permission to do the thing that we think is the worst thing. But then we see that desire to do that worst, so-called worst thing fades a little. That desire fades when you give yourself permission and you say, you know what, my intention is to release this, but if at some point in the future I slip up, you know what, I love you anyway. We talk to our inner child that way. I love you anyway, and I don't have to do anything or don't do anything to prove that, because I love you unconditionally. We don't blame ourselves. We don't shame ourselves. Nothing in the world can stop us from loving ourselves. That love is inherent in our being. And the more we go through our healing journey, the easier it gets to love ourselves. The easier it gets to take time out of our day, stop, close our eyes, put our hand over our heart, and tell our inner child, I love you. I'm here for you. I'm sorry you're hurting right now. I'm sorry you're scared. But I'm here, and I'll never leave you. I love you. Just breathe that in for a moment, friends. Placing a hand over the heart, tell yourself right now what you really most want to hear. Say anything that you want to hear that feels good, that's full of love. Okay, so I'm going to take a few minutes for questions here. I've talked way more than I thought I would. Time just flew by. I have 2 pre-submitted questions from 2 lovely souls. The first one is from Jan. Jan says, how do we break the addiction to judging others and ourselves? How do we break the addiction to judging others and ourselves? Well, yeah, Jan, it's a good point that you're making here that, within the question itself, it is an addiction to judge. That's perhaps even the most powerful addiction that exists for humans. Because when we're inherent in the act of judging, we're pretending that we know God's plan, right? By judging ourselves or someone else, we're kind of pretending that we know what's best. And we really don't, not from the highest perspective. Can we see all the moving parts of the universe and how it all fits together in perfect synchronicity and all the lessons that everyone is destined to learn and all our soul's lessons and how it's all supposed to come together? No way. I mean, we just can see like this tiny fraction. But God or the universe, goddess, whatever word you want to use, that knows all of it. That can see all of the moving parts. So, Jan, my answer to that is humble ourselves. Purposely, intentionally try to bring humility, cultivate humility in your life so that you can know through your prayers and meditation that the best way really to stop the addiction of judging is just to simply trust that there is a greater plan. It's simply that the little eye can't see it often. Just to trust. So I hope that helps. You're welcome, Luann. Last question here. If anyone has a question, now's your moment. Type it in the box. Okay, so this question is from Helena, who's, I believe, with us on the call. All right. So dear Helena says, how can one go about lovingly releasing shame for the choices they've made while engaging in their addiction? How can one go about lovingly releasing shame for the choices they've made while engaging in their addiction? I feel like a lot of what I've spoken of already speaks to this, Helena. So let me just check in to see if there's anything else that needs to be added to that. Yeah, just the constant reminder to yourself that you are perfect right now. When I say perfect, I don't mean that there's not room for growth. There's always room for growth. I don't know if you overheard that. My windows are open and my neighbor just like let out a whoop. I don't know if you heard that. So it was a nice exclamation point added to that. But so when I say you are perfect right now, what I mean is you are in perfect alignment with the divine orchestration of the universe right now. Addictions and all, flaws and all, growth areas and all. You are in alignment. You only perceive sometimes they're out of alignment, but that's a misperception. Right now, you are in alignment. So my advice would be to keep reminding yourself, I'm perfectly where I am. I'm perfectly where I need to be. I'm perfect as I am. Reminding yourself of that perfection of yourself and how you fit into the universe, like a perfect puzzle piece, just snapping right into place, helps to dissolve that shame, because truly shame drives addiction. As we all know, shame drives those negative behaviors that we want to release, but we just keep getting stuck only because we shame ourselves. But we don't feel shame if we know the perfection within. Oftentimes in our different religious or spiritual paths, unfortunately, there is this tendency to instill guilt and shame within us. But the new way of new earth, new humanness, is about saying, I don't need shame in my life anymore. I don't need to feel bad about who I am. I don't need to feel bad about the chapter of the journey that I'm in. We're all in different chapters, and that's great. I'm in a certain chapter. You're in a certain chapter. This other person's in a certain chapter. It all fits together like this puzzle. If we were all in the same chapter, it wouldn't work, would it? It would just be, it wouldn't even, life doesn't work like that. So this chapter is perfectly what I need for my soul to evolve. End of story. I'm perfect as I am. I'm humble enough to know there's more growth to go, because there always is and always will be. Even the angels have room to grow. The angels are trying to reach even higher dimensions. You think the angels don't have anything more to learn? They do. And we do, and so do the squirrels and the fishes and the trees. We're all learning and growing and evolving, and it's beautiful. Take a breath, my friends. Take a breath. Take a breath. Take a breath. It's been my joy to share with you today. Thank you for everyone who's here. Thanks for the lively chat conversation. I do appreciate that. If you would like to make a donation, the link is under the video box. You can send whatever amount you feel called to send. I feel very grateful that I receive donations from beautiful souls all the time, and this gives me the space and the freedom to dedicate my life force energies towards healing myself and then sharing what I've learned with all of you. So thank you. So our next soul satsang is going to be, mark your calendar, Saturday, August 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern. We are going to be talking about how to be single and happy. So even if you are in a relationship, this is still going to be good information, because even when we're with someone, we still need to be okay inside of ourselves. So this really is for everyone. August 21st, 2 p.m. Eastern, how to be single and happy. And so thank you again to everyone being here. Blessings on your Saturday. And if you're watching this later, the replay on YouTube, blessings on whatever day it is for you. So this is Anya Light signing off, wishing all of you blessings, peace, and know that whatever addiction that you intend to release from your life, it will happen all in perfect timing and perfect accord. Namaste.